Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Porky, who's the strongest, Flash Gordon or Tarzan? I don't know. Oh, Mr. Hood, isn't Flash Gordon stronger? No, Flash Gordon's stronger than Flash Gordon. He isn't. He is.
Just a minute. If you'll sit down and be quiet till I finish my meal, I'll tell you all I know about this Flash, Tarzan, and Gordon person.
That's fair enough.
Welcome to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani with the ever literal or literary, either way, David Cohen.
Thank you, Doug. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's an odd juxtaposition of being literary next to that last clip.
That was one of my favorite Little Rascals episodes. I'm so glad you pulled that out.
It was so great. I had that in my mind for the last umpteen years and didn't know where it came from, and I mentioned it to you, and you knew in like a split second where that quote came from.
And it's so obscure that I didn't mention it to you because I figured, I'm the only person on the planet that remembers that. And then boom, Doug's like, remember that clip from the Little Rascals where, Mr. Hood? I'm like, huh.
No, I didn't even say Little Rascals. I didn't know where it came from at all. I just knew the clip was...
Well, you remembered it.
I basically said two kids are comparing, Flash Gordon and Tarzan.
The Flash, Tarzan, and Gordon persons.
Well, the reason why we bring it up is because we've got the explosion now of Marvel and DC and their universes on TV, in the movie theaters, and I guess you could say we live in the age of heroes. Is that possible to say?
We definitely do.
Yeah, I mean, but that doesn't mean that the heroes were just recently invented and that we're the only ones that have ever experienced this. You know, like our parents, our grandparents, certainly good versus evil stories have existed almost forever. So the question then is, sometimes it's hard to imagine that your parents and grandparents and ancestors were kids, and as kids, what they were like, what they liked, what they didn't like, and what their hopes and dreams, and guess what? They had imagination too. We also that.
Well, mine did. My parents were never young. They were never kids. They never had an imagination. So
exactly.
I'm not really following you here, but keep going.
Well, I mean, did you ever see Back to the Future? I know it's just a movie, but it's sort of, that's it. Like, it's odd that you think about what were your parents like when they were, 15, and who were the heroes and all of that. So we're going to explore what I'm going to call the Victorian Avengers this week. The Victorian Avengers, hard to say. And the reason why I say that is because there are tons of heroes, maybe not superheroes, some of them are superheroes, but they were heroes to people from ancient Greece until right before 1932 when Marvel was invented, and Marvel really didn't hit it until the 60s, and DC didn't really hit it till mid-40s with Batman and Superman. So let's take a look and see what there was and what there is in terms of superheroes for our parents. And by the way, how do they compare to the Avengers today? And Dave and I later on the show are going to do an NFL type of draft and draft our own team of a Victorian Avengers and pit them up against today's Avengers and see what, crossing boundaries,
who would win.
Who would win, and we'll try to make our parents and grandparents and ancestors proud with all of this information because this is so important. Yes. Okay. Let's just listen to a little bit. We'll start off way back when. We'll try to do this chronologically. Hercules was certainly a hero.
Hercules undertakes 12 labors to purify his soul, kills or captures 12 monsters, later joins Jason and the Argonauts for the search of the Golden Fleece, and undertakes many other adventures alone, all involving his strength and his courage.
Who said the ancient Greeks weren't smart? I mean, they had tapes. It must have been unearthed, I guess, in the archaeological.
Where did you find that?
Hey, listen, I do a lot of research for this show.
It's like movie tone news for the ancient Greeks.
There you go. That's I don't know where that came from. I found that clip on YouTube, but that's a pretty good description of Hercules.
Yes, it was perfect, actually.
It was very well read, very well done. Too bad we don't know who that is from. But, so there's Hercules. He's in the game. We're going to start off. We're just going to introduce this section and the next section, some of these characters. So we all know Hercules. We did a show on Hercules. Go back to the podcast on everythingoldisnewagain.biz. Everything old is new again.biz. Pull up the podcast, and you will see a show it's really not a podcast, it's the old shows that have been aired previously. You'll see a little show about Hercules. So let's take a look at Achilles. Remember, you familiar with Achilles at all? Any idea?
Just the tendon.
And that is where it came from. We've got Achilles, who was in Homer's Iliad, which is a Greek poem way back in the almost year zero, really 100. And they did a movie, Troy, that brought it to life a little bit with, what's his name?
We need the greatest warrior. Achilles can't be controlled. Before my time is done, I will look down on your corpse and smile.
Brad Pitt bringing out Achilles. So Achilles was a huge hero back in the day. That was the Helen of Troy and the story where, you got the Trojan horse and Achilles went up against this Homer, and he was the strongest, greatest warrior there was. So we've got some...
What happened with his heel, with his...
Later on, after the Iliad and the Odyssey, there were other stories about him, and eventually at some point an arrow he was in battle, and an archer shot an arrow at his heel and destroyed the tendon that we now call the Achilles heel.
It wasn't known then as the Achilles tendon because it was Achilles tendon,
right, or Achilles heel, and he died as a result of that because he couldn't stand, and he lost the battle. So that's that. Then there's Beowulf. Remember this guy? I don't know if anybody read that in like elementary school or junior high school and
high school
English and high school. It's
I am
thrilling character.
Ripper, Tearer, Slasher, Gouger. I am the teeth in the darkness, the talons in the night. Mine is strength and lust and power. I am power.
I mean, he's unbelievable.
He's a very dramatic kind of person, too.
I mean, would you want him on your team? Think about the top three right now. Would you want any of these guys on your team?
All of
them.
A
team now. These are real individuals, all three of these guys.
They don't seem like team players. I don't know.
But neither is the Hulk, so I don't know. We'll have to talk about that, right? Certainly there's Robin Hood as well. I'm not going to clip every one of these guys.
He's a kind of a team player, right? Him and the Merry Men.
He could be one of the leaders of the team, certainly. What skills does he have? These others are clearly very strong, especially Hercules, and good with the sword. But what's Robin Hood going to do for
Didn't
you?
he have the bow and arrow?
Hit the bow and arrow, and maybe his brain and his ability to lead people.
Yeah, he was kind of a smart
So
guy.
he's like a Hawkeye of the day, basically. Think about it, right?
Hawkeye?
The modern Hawkeye in Avengers now.
Oh, that Hawkeye.
Right?
I thought you meant the MASH Hawkeye.
No. We're talking about the Avengers, and we're continuing with Sir Lancelot.
I am Lancelot of the Lake, from across the sea, and I have yet to find a king worthy of my sword.
That is a wild boast. You lack a knight's humility.
Not a boast, sir, but a curse, for I have never met my match in joust or duel.
All right, so you got somebody, that's pretty good in jousting and dueling, Sir Lancelot from the Knights of the Round Table of 1300. So, now we're seeing there are heroes. These were all, of course, not comic book. They're literary heroes. They're heroes that we need to take a look at who we're going to pick for our team. But Sir Lancelot got a fatal flaw with women. So I don't know if you want a guy like that that's going to maybe look the other way at some point if some evil, woman that might have
they all have their flaws, right?
That's true. That's true.
There isn't a perfect superhero.
Or is there?
Or is there?
We'll have to find out. That's the search at this point.
I thought there was something coming up right there.
Well, we've got Sinbad from the... I don't know if you...
Oh, yeah, he was a good guy.
He was a good guy from
he wasn't.
1001 Arabian Nights, yeah.
Was he?
Yes.
Sinbad, gay, roving vagabond of the Arabian Nights, the glorious braggart who made his tallest tales come true. Sinbad, who outwitted an army to invade the sacred baths of the harem beauties, drawn by the smoldering challenge of the girl called Shireen, the jewel of Persia.
He's the Sinbad. Really was a sailor, and remember the Sinbad the Sailor cartoon?
Yes.
Kid? So he's he's somebody on the water,
Sinbad
and he's able to. He really is able to fight and use his brain to overcome obstacle after obstacle. So I don't know. He's one that I don't know if he's really something we would love, but he's in the game. We'll be right back, and everything old is new again. Continue to talk about who we're going to have for our Victorian Avengers. That's Hercules, a TV show. Did you ever watch that one?
Ugh.
Hated it, liked it.
Hated it.
Yeah, I was into it for maybe maybe I'll go a year. Maybe. I don't think that long. And then it just started to wear on you. You know, they broke so many rules of who Hercules is and all of this. It just didn't. I don't know.
You're kind of a by the rules play, right? I mean, when it comes to some theme, whether it's vampires or ghosts or Hercules, if they don't play by the rules of the origin story, then you don't like it.
Correct, and I'm out. I don't mind sequels, but don't change the Fantastic Four to the Fantastic 3 or something, or don't change the Fantastic Four to a guy that freezes instead of turns to fire. I mean, does that make any sense?
Yes,
stay with the origins, the concrete nature, the foundation of it, and build from there, knock yourself out. But you're going to change the rules about vampires so they can stay out at night? A day?
No, the building blocks, the basic principles, I think, have to be the same. But you're right, you can add to them. Suddenly,
I got no problem with that.
Suddenly Sinbad can fly. I don't know.
Well, they did Sinbad the Sailor, the cartoon, if I remember. Somehow he did something where he became so strong as Hercules. That really wasn't part of it. I don't know. We'll be back. Everything old is new again. Mr. Hercules himself. Who's on your Victorian Avengers?
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
What do you want to buy?
Revenge.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor that I present the Count of Monte Cristo.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani with David Cohen, and we are diving into the list of Victorian Avengers. Who would be on your Avengers before the comic book era came about? We've seen Hercules, who's, of course, hugely strong, which is sort of like maybe a Hulk type or the Thing. Mm-hmm. You've got Achilles, you've got Beowulf, great warriors. You've got Robin Hood, maybe a Hawkeye type. Sir Lancelot, Sinbad is on the high seas, which is very unique. I don't know, exactly. He's a thought-provoking character. Like, what good is it to have a guy on the water all the time? But
Aquaman must serve some purpose too, right?
That's very true, very true. We just started there with the Count of Monte Cristo, one of David's favorites. Why would you want him on your team, you think?
I think first of all, he's really good at disguises.
Right.
Just from the book. I never saw the movie, by the way. I just read
great.
Yeah.
Jim Caravel. I can't pronounce the guy's name. Caravel.
Is it good?
Yes, it's very good. Yep.
All right. So Master of Disguise, but also like a survivor. He knows how to get out of difficult situations. I don't know if that's like a superhero strength, but he's got revenge. He's very revenge focused, so I think.
But he's pretty sharp. He's pretty smart.
And he's very smart
because he did a lot to escape a prison. If you know the story, long story short, he's wrongfully in prison.
Very long story.
Let's just say he's wrongfully in prison and he finds a way out.
Right, and he exacts revenge on the people who put him in prison
in the 1840s. So he's a sharpshooter. He can do that. He's a swordsman. So there's a lot of swordsmen we've seen so far.
Yes.
That's a lot of it.
He's basically the guy they developed the new commercial, not new commercial, but the commercial, the most interesting man in the world. That's basically the Count of Monte Cristo.
I think you might be right. All right, so let's take a look at a bunch in a row here. I'm going to play a clip and see if you recognize these three characters.
You may call me Captain Nemo.
Why, such a secret could revolutionize the world.
Or destroy it.
Go below, Professor.
You are going to sing that ship?
I said go below. Stand by, engines.
I'd be most grateful for the return of the blade. Now clear up them there shambles, or I'll feed you piecemeal to the rats in the cellar.
You'll thrill to the magnificent love story of the flaming redhead and the handsome jungle adventurer, as together they fight their hazardous way through a vast land of mystery and excitement in their relentless quest for the fabulous fortune that rests in King Solomon's mines.
Okay, you got those three. What do you think? Did you get a little quiz? You know who they were? Started off with?
I'm not good at this.
All right, for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne.
Nemo.
Yep, Captain Nemo. You got Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson.
Oh, right. Long John Silver.
Correct. And you got King Solomon's Mines, 1885.
Alan Quartermain.
Yeah, so which is sort of an Indiana Jones type of character.
Right.
And then you've got Long John Silver, who's in the Stars show Black Sails, if you watch that. You see a little of that character, what he's really like, how very resourceful he is. I would almost call him like a Dr. Doom without the power. I mean, he's very resourceful. Whatever situation he's in, he's using his mind, his guile to get out of whatever situation that is. And that's a show we did that show on on Long John Silver and Pirates a little ways back. You may want to check that out. And then we've got Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne. These are all late 1800s, an 1870 creation. He's sort of like an Iron Man of the day, right? I mean, he's not wearing his armor, but he's traveling the sea in his armor,
in a submarine,
in the Nautilus, and he's got all the technology like civilization does not have. So I think Captain Nemo is a pretty interesting character to think about. Which of those three would you even consider being on your team, you think?
I like Long John Silver, just because he's a bright guy also. Like, he's smart. Not that the others aren't, but
then the only question is, would he fight for good versus evil?
Right.
Would he be someone that could be bought off, That's the only thing.
He's a soldier of fortune.
Yeah, right. But he definitely would be one you'd want sort of on your team, but maybe not, because would he be playing games with your team and trying to trick them?
That's true.
But, that's his power. So let's check out the next three. See, you'll probably know who all these are.
Man is not truly one, but two. Now, supposing we could break that chain. Separate those two selves. Free the good in man and let it go on to its higher destiny. And segregate the bad. Let it destroy itself in its own degradation.
An ancestor of mine maintained that if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
But how do you know about them?
Elementary, my dear Watson.
I wanted to do something tremendous. To achieve what men of science have dreamt of since the world began. To write my name above the greatest scientists of all time. The secret of invisibility lies there in my books. I shall work in Kent's laboratory till I find the way back.
All right, there we go. What do you think? Three characters there.
Why was Spock in there, then?
Yes, it's our Star Trek reference. First, we had Jekyll and Hyde, right? Which is Robert Louis Stevenson again in 1886. Sherlock Holmes, of course, was Arthur Conan Doyle, same time frame, 1887. But right before Sherlock Holmes, you heard Spock. And if you remember our show on Sherlock Holmes, you'll remember that there's a reference there from Nicholas Meyer, who wrote that movie, The Undiscovered Country, where Mr. Spock says his ancestor said what that quote was.
I see. So you're tying it in.
And his ancestor was, in that movie, Sherlock Holmes. That makes sense. We can listen to the old show for that one as well. I think you were here for that. You may have heard that originally. And then there was, of course, The Invisible Man.
I was here in body, yes. I don't know.
H.G. Wells, 1897. So now we've got some characters that really have superhero powers, really. Superpowers with Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde's a Hulk type, right? Couldn't be any more Hulkish. He's human, and then he bulks up, right? Yeah, Sherlock Holmes, I would say like a Mr. Fantastic. He's a genius in some ways, right? And then you've got the Invisible Man, like Susan Storm, Fantastic Four, an invisible guy.
So the only difference, really, is that the newer characters have the cool uniforms, right?
It seems that way.
The spandex. These old characters didn't really have
and they're
that.
in teams. Even the Fantastic Four is a team unto itself. And before you get to the Avengers, there are individuals. But so these are some interesting ones that I think now we're going to go to more of a list in this next section. But let's talk about who we have. Are there any here on this list that would be your first pick or second pick? Like, who would you think would really you'd got to have on your team?
Well, Sherlock Holmes. Are we talking about like the new Sherlock Holmes, where he's such a great boxer and fighter?
Well, yeah, he was a boxer and fighter in the books.
But they never made a big deal of that in the movies.
No, but that's a good point. But we're really talking about the movies, the literary Victorian understanding of who these people are.
I mean, I would say Sherlock Holmes is right up there, because not only can he fight for you, but he can solve crime,
and you want him on your team.
Yeah.
To lead the team. To solve what's going on. Where are you?
Correct.
Who else? I'm just trying to think who else so far.
Well, the Invisible Man, definitely, because
what a great superpower.
That's almost like a modern superhero. You know?
That's a great superpower. Although this particular Invisible Man has to walk around naked. Just saying.
Right.
There's a little drawback there, but I'm
not going to see him. I don't care.
And this Invisible Man does not change back. He's always invisible. So yeah, that's a great one, but that might drive, as it did in the movie, and the book, it drove him insane.
All right, no, he's off the team.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a great superpower. I think Alan Quartermain might be one you may want to consider, because like an Indiana Jones type, if you're not familiar with King Solomon's Mines, he's a thinker. He's an adventurer. He can shoot a gun like he's a marksmith with a gun. That's his superpower. I don't know. I'm leaning towards Captain Nemo, to tell you the truth, but Nemo doesn't like humanity. So they all have these, which is what makes them great characters. They all have these foibles.
Right?
Yeah. Like, would he fight for right or not? Well, what he feels is right. Let's put it that way. So if you're fighting an enemy and he doesn't believe in the fight, he's not with you on this. He basically fell out of society. That's his whole thing, to create his own society, right?
Off the team. Nope.
All right, so we'll have to figure this out. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of interesting characters here that, I don't know, as far as I'm concerned, they could compete so far with the Avengers of today. We'll see. On Everything Old is New Again, come on back. We'll continue and figure out who would be your Avengers.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping to get in on the excitement. Who said that? Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Invisible Man.
There you go.
Say, Charlie, why the arm in the sling?
Yeah, I walked straight into that busted street sign in front of Frank's Automat.
Well, you must have been really sore at him.
You said it, pal. I said, say, what's a big idea of making a fella trip out there? I was going to sock him right in the kisser.
He's all wet. Why, you ought to sue him, Charlie.
I have half a mind to do just that. But where am I going to get that kind of dough?
Say, I know a fella just got me out of a big jam, and he didn't break the bank.
You don't say.
Yeah, the law office of Douglas Viviani.
The law office of Douglas Viviani?
That's right, the law office of Douglas Viviani.
Viviani.
That's what I said, Viviani.
Are you a straight shooter?
He's a cat's meow.
He's on the up and up?
Doug's ace is with me.
Is that so?
He's a bee's knees.
Well, that's just swell. You have his number?
You can call him at 631-681-1910 or email him at vivianilaw.com.
Wait, what was that last part?
What, email?
Yeah, what's email?
vivianilaw.com.
When you're seeking to change your career, apply for a promotion, or trying to find a job, your resume is the first thing that's seen that represents you to a potential employer. Make sure your resume makes a clear, concise, and professional impression of who you are so you can get that job interview. Send your current resume to ResumeDrInc at AOL.com for a free online review. You'll receive a timely reply with a reasonable quote to properly prepare your resume. Let them make sure you have a resume that will get you noticed. Send your resume or questions to ResumeDrInc at AOL.com.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything Old is New Again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The cheetah has grown to know one who is swifter. The lion knows one who is braver. Tarzan. The strength of Tarzan, no man can say. Deep in the jungle, Tarzan continues to enforce his law, the law of right.
How about that? The law of right enforced by Tarzan.
Is it Tarzan or Tarzan? This guy kept saying Tarzan.
That's the 1966 TV show's intro, and I guess they were just trying to put a new spin on it to give it like a fresh new look. Tarzan, how rough and ready he is, you know. So he was created in 1912, so he's a potential Victorian Avenger.
Yes.
This is Everything Old is New Again, and we're trying to look at characters created before the comic book era, which basically started basically the 1940s. So the question is, in superheroes, who would be your ancestors, your fathers, your grandfathers, your grandmothers, heroes, and would they measure up with the Avengers today? So we're kind of going to do a draft of the Victorian era Avengers and see how they stack up against the new ones.
Now, is Tarzan... Okay. See, part of this I could see already is going to be the setting in which we're...
Right.
Because if you take Tarzan out of the jungle, then he doesn't come with all his animals, right?
True, and he can't swing from the, the vines.
Yeah. So what good is he? If you're going to,
Well, he's very smart and very strong, but you're right.
You're going to battle the Avengers in New York City, Tarzan's not going to be much of a help.
Unless he has access to the Bronx Zoo or something.
That's
seriously.
True. That's true.
That's an interesting point. Wow. Okay, well, let's take a look at two others.
I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I got my brain working a little bit.
Nice. That's what we're trying to do here. Have the arguments you love to have. You've got to think before you can argue, right? Or no?
Well, you should. Whether people do or not, yeah.
That's a good point. Take a look at The Shadow and The Lone Ranger. See what you think of that.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Hi-Yo Silver! A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver. The Lone Ranger.
I'm glad to have the Lone Ranger helping me instead of against me every time.
There we go. So we've got two that I think are really interesting. And of course, we're now in the 1930 era now in terms of...
What did the Shadow do? What was his superpower?
He had intelligence, but more than that, he had the ability to use the dark arts to enter a room and to mesmerize you where you could not see him. In essence, he was invisible. So it wasn't the Invisible Man. He could, he would be Lamont Cranston, a regular person by day. But if he wanted to enter into your room, and, or do some kind of spying on somebody, you would never see him.
So he would hire himself out.
Yeah, no, he would solve crimes.
Oh, on his own.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an Invisible Man type, but a more stable Invisible Man.
Huh. Okay.
So that's interesting. And of course, the Lone Ranger is a great leader, a sharpshooter, an adventurer. This guy, possible leader for a team, I would think. He was involved in all kind of problems, all kind of different adventures, and he'd get himself out of being tied up. He'd get himself out of being without a horse and without food, whatever the problem is.
Does he come with Tonto, or is he?
No, just the Lone Ranger. What do you think? You like him? You don't like him?
Possibly. Again, it depends on the setting.
All right. And we've also got Zorro. We don't have a clip for him, but, Zorro was back in the day, those early days of yesteryear, as they say, and he was a marksman with that sword, if that's what you say.
Making the Z with the sword.
Yeah. So, and of course, he had a great heart. Some of these people, they have these superpowers like the Invisible Man, and they're a little questionable. You've got Zorro, who's got these powers of the sword, and he's owling out for justice. So he's sort of... He's not like John Silver, who could be bought off. If that makes sense. So these are some considerations. We're getting down to the wire here before we select our Victorian Avengers. Let's take a look at Flash Gordon and a few others.
Keep your slimy hands off her, and you grab him!
Only the picture could change, and I could be always what I am now.
For the mad wish of Dorian Gray was granted through some supernatural miracle. And day by day he watched his sins etch themselves upon his painted portrait, while he himself stayed young and handsome.
So you're a private detective. What will your first step be?
The usual one.
I didn't know there was a usual one.
Sure there is. It comes complete with diagrams on page 47 of How to Be a Detective in 10 Easy Lessons correspondence school textbook, and your father offered me a drink.
There you go. There's Flash Gordon, Dorian Gray, and Philip Marlowe, as played by none other than Humphrey Bogart. So we're talking about using these characters and trying to figure out who would be on our Avengers, the Victorian Avengers. Flash Gordon would be very interesting because he'd be a character that, he wasn't from an advanced civilization that much, but he does know technology. But more than that, he might be my leader if I could, because... as far as I'm concerned, this guy, never got out of any adventure unscathed. In other words, he had some problems every week, and was able to think his way out of it, fight his way out of it, shoot his way out of it. I mean, there was nothing stopping. He's like a Captain America type. There was nothing stopping this guy.
Right. Very, very resourceful, very powerful guy.
And then it was, but just a human,
Right, yeah.
Then there's Dorian Gray. You familiar with that story? No. There's a picture on his wall, and anything he does, anything happens to his body, or it goes onto the picture of him. So in other words, he never ages at all. The picture ages. The picture of him on the wall ages.
Oh, is that why
he never ages?
Something about the picture of
Dorian Gray. So he's immortal. Okay?
Is that what that means?
Yes, and can't be hurt. He gets shot and he comes back to life, no problem. So he's a Wolverine type. Maybe not as much powers as Wolverine, but he's a Wolverine type. He is not going anywhere. He's immortal. So is, by the way, Tarzan. We know that.
Right. He's immortal too.
We saw that. But the only issue then is
what does he
his
do,
sanity. He became depraved in the story, the Oscar Wilde story. He became a depraved individual, went down the road of evil and just, the really question was, could he or could anyone be immortal but still be a good person, or would you just get tired of that and want to do different things, change things socially and physically for yourself? So that's that. And then there's Philip Marlowe, who is a detective that I would say possibly would rival Sherlock Holmes. It's an argument there because there's not as many stories for that character, but that character is a Sherlock Holmes type with a lot of gumption, as played by our friend Humphrey Bogart. So I don't know. You tell me, where are you?
Well, also we want to mention too that the Three Musketeers was another group of Victorian superheroes, but I think we had so many sword fighters already that it just. Yeah, but they get an honorable
and
mention.
it was 3 of them, so they were a group already. So you pick 1 to 10, whatever. So a little bit of an issue there. Yeah, but they would be in the game. So we now have our list.
Yes,
I'm going to go through it real quick for our listeners, so you can tally up yourself. Who would you want to be on your team? Hercules, Achilles, Beowulf, Robin Hood, Sir Lancelot, Sinbad the Sailor, the Count of Monte Cristo, Captain Nemo. Let's see, Long John Silver, Alan Quatermain from King Solomon's Mines, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Sherlock Holmes, Invisible Man, Tarzan, Zorro, The Shadow, The Lone Ranger, Flash Gordon, Dorian Gray, and Philip Marlowe. These may have been some or all of your ancestors' heroes. So where do you think you stand? We're going to come back and take a look at that on Everything Old is New again in a few minutes. But before we do, I'm a fan of the 1960s, of course, and I have some little surprise for David Cohn. I know he loves these send-offs, and we're talking about the Avengers. So he was an original Avenger. Then he could not be a teammate any longer. Who was he? What was his name?
Turned into the Hulk. Ain't he on Glamour Race? Wrecking the town with the power of a bull. Ain't no monster clown who is as lovable as ever-loving Hulk.
There you go. What do you think?
Oh, any song that rhymes gamma rays with unglamorous is okay with me. Unglamorous. Ain't he unglamorous?
Right, exactly. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Hulk is someone to measure up with, but is he compared, should he be a member of the Avengers? And when we're comparing the Avengers versus the Victorian Avengers, does that make sense? Like, he was on the Avengers in the comics, but maybe 5 comics, and then he left. As he's going to do now. He's left, if you'd seen the latest incarnation, he's not in Civil War. You remember he went off in the last Avengers movie on that plane, and they thought it crashed at sea, and they don't know where he is. And I think at this point he's now going to be on his own, as he's indicated to Scarlet Witch.
I think we should go with that then. No, right? He's not in the Avengers.
All right, so then that gives the advantage to Jekyll and Hyde to have a powerful individual like that.
Right.
To be able to
That's true.
Pull out of the hat. So we should mention that that's for our podcasters. Thanks for listening on everythingoldisnewagain.biz. We're going to come back in a few minutes, but what we're going to ask you to do is have some patience. I think we should mention what we just said about the Hulk on the top of the next section, just to lay it out.
So that it's fair to everybody.
Everybody's fair, right? And then we'll make our draft for the Victorian Avengers. Should be a lot of fun. Come on back.
Turned into the Hulk. Ain't he on Glamour Race? Wrecking the town with the power of a bull. Ain't no monster clown who is as lovable as ever-loving Hulk.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, can't you see? Just like flies, look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. We are now taking a look at the Avengers present day versus the Victorian Avengers. We have to actually pick our Victorian Avengers first.
Yes.
And we are with David Cohen and Douglas Viviani. We've just gone through the list. We're now going to do a mock draft and pick our team that will go up against the modern-day Avengers. Just so you know, there's Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Hulk, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch are basically on the Avengers team. We'll try to do 6. If we don't do, we'll have a sufficient team, both of us, as we go through the draft here. But what I would suggest is that the Hulk left the team after the first couple of episodes, or first couple of comic book episodes of the Avengers, and then if you look in the movies, he's gone out of the movies now of the Avenger team. So questionable as to whether our Victorian Avengers would be up against a team that has the Hulk. I would suggest that they would not. So we'll take the Hulk out of it.
Take the Hulk out.
We'll put Black Widow in instead.
Okay.
So that's the team. So I just want to talk about that Hulk theme and that we ended last section with, and ended up with this Spider-Man theme here from the 60s. I know you're a big theme guy. What'd you think of that Hulk theme? That was tremendous, huh?
No, I loved it. All those Marvel, about 1966, the cartoons came out, and each cartoon had a theme, and they were all really good.
Why'd you like the Hulk theme so much?
Oh, it was just very campy.
Yeah.
And like I said, rhyming the gamma ray, just that voice.
When did you rhyming what? We didn't hear that. It was on the podcast.
Oh, right. So, sorry. So, they actually rhyme 2 words. Well, they rhyme 2 couplet words, I guess. One is gamma rays, and the other one is unglamorous. And they rhyme them by saying, Dr. Banner, belted by gamma rays, turns into the Hulk. Ain't he unglamorous?
So there's
to rhyme with gamma
any
rays.
song that can do that, it's got to be.
It's good with me. Yeah, and Spider-Man. That Spider-Man song was the same in that same series, same genre, and Iron Man was a great tune also.
Absolutely. All right, who's your pick? Who's your first pick from the Victorian Avengers?
The first pick.
Make it quick because we got to go.
Do we have to name our team?
Yeah.
Do we name our teams? No.
No, we're both the Victorian Avengers. Go ahead.
Oh. Okay.
Dave's Victorian Avengers.
Okay, Dave's Victorian Avengers. My first pick would have to be Sherlock Holmes.
Interesting. And is he going to lead your team?
He's the captain of my team.
All right, so that's for Dave. The captain of my team then is going to be, I'm going with the Lone Ranger. He's a huge hero. He's inspirational. That he's on my squad. That's my leader. Who are you going for next?
I should give you the next 2 picks because I got the first
Yes,
pick.
good idea. I'm going to then take Flash Gordon because this guy cannot be, no matter what, he's what would you say? He can't be defeated. He's my Captain America, so to speak. And I'm going to take, I'm going to go with Jekyll and Hyde. I know it's questionable.
That's 3 in a row then.
Well, you said take 2. I see what you're saying.
John Silver and Flash Gordon.
All right, so I'm going to not take Flash Gordon. I'm taking Jekyll and Hyde. And I didn't. My team, to be clear, is Lone Ranger and Jekyll and Hyde so far. What do you got?
Lone Ranger? I thought you said Long John Silver.
No, Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger. All right, you're right. Okay.
All right, so what do you have?
Oh wow. I am going to roll the dice and say that Tarzan will have his team of animals handy, so my second pick will be Tarzan.
So he's like a traveling circus, so to speak, right?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to take Flash Gordon for the reasons I just mentioned. So far I've got Lone Ranger, I've got Flash Gordon, I've got Jekyll and Hyde. What do you got next?
All right, next for me is going to be Hercules. I'm going with a lot of brute strength here.
That's a really good pick. Wow, I overlooked that one. I feel terrible. Wow. All right. Well, along those lines, then, I am going to take the Shadow. And I do that because he has a legitimate superpower of basically being invisible. But he's not going to be naked, so he can go into whatever area he wants to be, as the other Superman, the Invisible Man, had trouble with. So I've got the Shadow. Who are you picking for your last selection?
All right, I'm going to pick the Invisible Man because even though he'd have to be naked when he was invisible, I'm going to have Dr. Jekyll come up with some formula to help keep him.
All right, that's your fourth. I'm going with Captain. No, should I go with him? Yeah, I'm going to go with Captain Nemo, and he's going to may have some trouble with this team because you know what? I'm not going with Captain Nemo. I wanted somebody to be comparable to Iron Man, but I don't like the temperament of Captain Nemo, so I'm not taking him. Boy, this is going to be tough. How about? Boy, I'm tempted to take Dorian Gray, too, but I don't like his temperament. He may not be a team player. And I like Long John Silver, but I don't like his temperament. So I'm going to go with Achilles, because this guy is a battler. He's not going to lose any battles. He's a warrior par excellence from Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey for the first century. So that's my team. Well, you have one more selection, brother. It's tough.
It is tough.
When you consider the foibles and the faults, you know?
Yes, it's true. You know what? I'm going to go with the Count of Monte Cristo.
You love that guy. Wow.
Because, you know, the element of surprise and disguise, I think, is very important here.
All right, so your team then is Sherlock Holmes, Tarzan, Hercules has got a lot of power. What was the other one? Who else? Count of Monte Cristo and Invisible Man.
Yes.
So you do have some good real powers there. Hercules, Invisible Man, and Tarzan have some great powers. Sherlock Holmes is going to lead that team up to storm solve any mystery, and the Count of Monte Cristo is sort of like
they're going to.
bag.
I think that Sherlock Holmes is going to be good in terms of figuring out where these guys are and what they're up to. I think the Count of Monte Cristo I'm putting in there as my spy to go in and see what they're up to. And then, obviously, once we start swarming, we got Hercules, we have all the animals, we've got...
Invisible Man to go in there, too.
The Invisible Man also can go and spy on some of them. So,
all right, that's pretty good. All right, I like that. I got the Lone Ranger, I got Flash Gordon, Jekyll and Hyde, the Shadow, and Achilles. So I've got... The Shadow can do my investigation. The Shadow can figure out what's going on in terms of, where people are as an invisible individual. You got the Lone Ranger and even Flash Gordon. They'll work well together, as their egos are not going to be too big to be able to work together and figure out and solve problems. Achilles and Jekyll and Hyde, that's my Hulk right there. I got some power there with those two. So, they might be able to battle the present-day Avengers, I would think. We've got some, it's an interesting combo of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor's got some power. Hawkeye doesn't really have a lot of powers. Black Widow's have a lot of, over and above super powers.
Right, so that's true.
All three teams have humans mixed in with some people that are immortal and or have a lot of power.
The problem is that the weapons that the modern Avengers have, unfortunately, the Victorian Avengers don't have that.
Well, that's where
firepower.
Flash Gordon comes in. Flash Gordon can use his spaceship and all his technology there to help battle. And I know they're no Iron Man, but they could at least put up a front there where there is some technology on the Victorian side with Flash Gordon. That's true, but technology doesn't always win the day.
Right. Absolutely.
You've got invisibility that you can just go in and turn off half that technology, but how will you do it? By being invisible. Well, you got the Invisible Man there for that. And Tarzan's no dope either. He's an intelligent dude in this scenario. And you got Hercules is very strong. You don't have the Thor anymore, so it's Hercules against Thor. For the Avengers. So, I don't know. I think we've got some good teams here. And these two teams that we came up with for the Victorian Avengers of characters that are developed in literature before comic books, I would suggest to you can measure up. And your grandfather's Avengers or Victorian Avengers can certainly measure up to the present-day Avengers.
It would be a good battle. And I think it's a great premise for a movie, don't you?
I do. I think it's yet another thing that we should be developing and writing.
You start your own franchise with the Victorian Avengers, right? Just to develop some movies, and then ultimately you'll challenge the Marvel Avengers.
And a lot of these characters are in the public domain. They've been around for so long that we can use them.
And they can take on the Justice League at some point, too, right? Why not?
Absolutely. We'll be back, and everything old is new again.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver. The Lone Ranger.
All right. Those are some pretty... Actually, I'm surprised that these teams really do kind of measure up, even though the more modern Avengers are going to use technology and stuff like that, and a little more advanced. But, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells were no fools. They wrote some of these characters that, Captain Nemo could be the Iron Man of his day. Think about it. He's a renegade, too, and he's going to do whatever he wants, just like Iron Man, right?
Well, it's also interesting because if you put the old Victorian characters into the modern day, give them a few years... They could learn the systems and the software and the technology and probably maybe even exceed what the Avengers know.
Hey, listen,
they're smart guys.
If you got the invisibility on your side too, think about what you can learn just by sitting in the presence of these characters. Think about
or
it.
disrupt, or
Oh, definitely. But if you want to just learn about what technology they have, what they could do, and how you can develop that technology and steal it, you could do it and then learn from there.
And isn't it amazing how there isn't one woman on this list of Victorian?
Well, that was
superheroes.
That was the day. That was the day we've developed over time, which is great. All right, we'll be back next week on Everything Old is New again to enjoy America's pop culture entertainment and have those arguments you love to have.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger.